H-O-O-D. I'm Reverend Dr. Jeff Hood, R-E-V-D-R-J-E-F-F-H-O-O-D.
I'm Catherine Barlow Williams, K-A-T-H-E-R-Y-N B-A-R-L-O-W hyphen W-I-L-L-I-A-M-S.
I'm Andy Brower, A-N-D-I, and my last name is Brower, B-R-A-U-E-R.
I'm Mahira Jawani, M-A-H-I-R-A-J-I-W-A-N-I.
So, and we've got a mixture of folks here, but I work as I have the pleasure to serve as Stephen Nelson's spiritual advisor. I've been working with him for a number of months now, and Catherine is the pastor here at Central Presbyterian. And what I think we're going to do, what I was hoping we could do, is maybe you could introduce the church and sort of where y'all are at on the death penalty, and then we can move into Stephen. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
We are Central Presbyterian Austin. We are deliberately diverse, or seek to be deliberately diverse and fully inclusive, standing up and expressing our faith in a way that brings equality and celebrates the diversity of humanity. One of our greatest concerns in knowing about the death penalty and how often it happens, executions happen in our state, what it is costing our souls, and what is also costing the taxpayers dollars. It costs more than 3 times to execute an inmate than to imprison them for life. So if we can't, God, we are called to forgive. That's what Jesus said even when he was hanging on a cross. He didn't ask God for retribution or revenge. He asked God only to forgive them, for they know not what they do. So we ask for mercy, compassion, and yes, we need to have some sort of system that is truly a correctional system and not just punishment and retribution and revenge. So do not avenge the death of the victim of Stephen Nelson on the behalf of all pastors, because by far, I think the vast majority of us do not support the death penalty. While I feel for his victim's family and all those who love this person, this pastor, I just pray and hope that we can change our culture, because as Martin Luther King said, we can't drive out hate with hate.
That's right.
Only love can do that.
Yeah, that's right.
And now is a time, in our country especially, when we need more love and less hate.
That's right. That's right. Well, that's the press conference right there. She said it all. I wanted to thank everybody for coming out. Wanted to thank different news stations we have. Also thank everybody who's joining us online from around the world. I want to very clearly start by saying, we have this banner behind us, who would Jesus execute? For so long, people have asked, what would Jesus do? People wore the bracelets. People have, asked that question over and over again. And one of the main questions of our faith is, what would Jesus do? We are to live and love and exist in the path of Jesus. Who would Jesus execute? If you can't imagine Jesus as the executioner, then I don't see how any follower of Jesus could support the death penalty. I'll back up for a second and tell you a little bit about Stephen. Stephen grew up in a home of horror. He was regularly beaten. He was regularly sexually molested. He grew up in and out of juvenile detention facilities. He saw psychiatrists and psychologists so much when he was a young person that there is a long record of difficulty and struggle, mental health issues, psychological issues. So much so that at his sentencing phase of his trial, a psychologist that saw him when he was 12 years old came forward and revealed her report from when he was 12 years old. And at 12 years old, this psychologist said, that Stephen Nelson was irreparably broken. This is someone that we need to be very clear about this, that our society failed. I'll stop right there for a second and simply say that a lot of times when we approach this point of execution, the question is always, what did they do? Far too little do we ask, what did we do? How did we fail? There's no question that we failed Stephen Nelson. Stephen went on with his life. He got into all sorts of crime and whatnot outside of Dallas, in and around the Metroplex up there. Got into robbing and stealing and these such things. He didn't know a whole lot of other ways to exist, and the reason is because he kept being shown avenues that he couldn't take. Stephen actually went to college and was kicked out based on his criminal record in his past. He was trying to do better, trying to make a way out of no way, and we kicked him out, kicked him down again. The crime itself is horrific. I am not someone that is like a lot of death penalty activists that's going to come out here and tell you that a lot of these folks are angels and they're all innocent and we deserve to, just open the doors and let everybody run out. Stephen was a part of an incredibly evil act. A lot of people are scared to use that word evil. What happened was evil. Stephen's recounting of the facts is that he was a part of a group, him and two other people, that went in to rob North Point Baptist Church in Arlington. And Stephen was supposed to be the lookout. The crime ultimately led to the horrific murder of Clint Dobson. Clint was, a bag was placed over his head and he was suffocated to death. This was a young pastor. Catherine knows, I know, a lot of pastors know what it looks like to be a young pastor, 26, 27, 28 years old, just starting out, trying to figure out things, trying to figure out how you are supposed to be, how you're supposed to exist. Judy Elliott was another victim. She was the secretary at the church, and she was beaten so horribly that her husband came in to check on them and found her and couldn't recognize her. It was horrific. Stephen's DNA was inside of the church. There were footprints of his inside the church. His story is that he went in to rob the church, stole a laptop, stole keys, stole a car, some money. Maybe I'm overstating, but some of those succession of things, and left. The state says that Stephen Nelson did all. I find that a little difficult to believe based on how much was done. But I think for us gathered here, this is a moral question. It's a question of who would Jesus execute? So again, I think it's important that we state that there's different accounts of what happened. Stephen went on he was caught spending money, driving the car, using all of these different things. The church was a plant of First Baptist Arlington, and of course, both congregations responded in horror. The pastor of First Baptist Arlington led the way. He's still the pastor of First Baptist Arlington. And in leading the way, the church begins to call for the death penalty. Says that there needs to be justice. Unfortunately, Christian theology is often such that we believe that there's got to be blood when something bad happens. I reject that. I certainly reject that with regards to the death penalty. So Stephen ultimately goes to trial. The other people that were tangentially connected to the case, were never found to have, or found by the state to have participated in the crime. Stephen has a wild record in the Tarrant County Jail. I mean, fights with guards. He was accused of a murder in the Tarrant County Jail. And the medical examiner later ruled that murder a suicide. Suicide. But again, I want to very clearly state, this is not a situation where we're able to say this person is innocent and all of these types of things. But we are here to say that this person matters. This person is made in the image of God, and they matter. We've seen this Robbie Robertson moment, and I'll speak to that a little bit in a second. But people keep on running out on these cases, especially of late, and we're only hearing about innocence. I think we want to talk about morality. Do we want to teach our children to kill people by continuing to kill people? Who would Jesus execute? When Stephen was, when the trial happened and the sentencing phase happened, First Baptist Arlington and their pastor released a statement that said that this was, after the death penalty was brought down, that this was God's will. This is what they had prayed for. They were excited and ecstatic as a congregation to be reaching this moment. In true evangelical fashion, they said that they were going to go and see Stephen. They were going to minister to him. They were going to pray for his salvation. We're 13 years later, and Stephen has never talked to any of these people. It's important to practice what you preach. And that's what we're here today doing. We're trying to practice what we preach. We say that God loves people. We say that we're supposed to love our neighbors as we love ourselves. And we're here today clearly saying that you can't love. We're told we're supposed to love our enemies, not kill our enemies. We are told that what you have done to the least of these, you have done to me. Jesus says, what you've done to the least of these, you have done to me. Jesus said, I was in prison and either you visited me or you didn't. That rings quite true when you got a church talking about visiting somebody and they didn't. I work all over the country with guys who are approaching execution. If Stephen is executed, he will be the 9th person that I've been with in the execution chamber. And I can tell you that what we are doing to our correctional officers, what we are doing to the Texas Department of Criminal Justice is absolutely horrific. Just yesterday, I had a meeting with TDCJ in preparation for the execution. Every person that was in the room said, we hate this. But yet we got Governor Abbott and Attorney General Paxton and all of these people saying, we want to execute people. We want justice. We want law and order. And I say that if you want to call for law and order and if you want to call for people to be executed, then do it yourself. Quit expecting other people to do it. Quit dragging down our society. I think if Governor Abbott and Attorney General Paxton had to practice what they preach, had to live out their faith, I don't think we would have any executions. If they had to do the killing, I don't think we would have any executions. Stephen, we visited yesterday morning. We talk every day. I've worked very hard with his wife, Noah, to get his story out there. But since we're here in Austin and y'all experience a lot of these cases, I think it's very important to, at this moment, speak to the fact that the cases that are getting attention are not cases like this. We're seeing it over and over, that the cases that are getting attention, when the money rolls in and when the outside national press rolls in, it's not cases like this. I think that we need to mind our hearts. We need to think about what we are doing to our society. We need to think about what we're doing to ourselves. We need to think about what we're doing to our correctional officers. And I believe our churches need to ask, who would Jesus execute? Lastly, I'll say that we have over 11,000 signatures, 11,000 people who don't want this to happen. This is a case that hadn't gotten a tremendous amount of the national sort of media coverage, and yet 11,000 people don't want this to happen.